of an ongoing system of apartheid that seeks to make Palestinian life impossible. Tonight, we will share stories of Palestinians enduring life under occupation, offering you a glimpse into the harsh realities imposed by Israeli apartheid in the wall. Let these stories be a testament to the steadfastness of our people in the face of relentless aggression, a steadfastness that transcends the arbitrary borders of the West Bank into Gaza, Beirut, and every land that has resisted Israeli violence and will continue to do so.
We resist simply by existing on the land. These are the words of Isa Cassis, the mayor of Ramallah, a city in the West Bank functioning as the political and economic center of the West Bank. Ramallah has faced increased Israeli military encroachment. After the Second Intifada, checkpoints have become more present in the West Bank, and the apartheid wall essentially carved up the land of Palestine. As the Zionist occupation divided up the land, they took key areas that were fertile or contained water sources and isolated villages from one another. Here, the occupation is present in everyday life. Wells for water are in Area C of the West Bank, where security is controlled by Israeli forces and where the Israeli settlements are, meaning that Palestinians cannot access water on their own land. Their own wells and water tanks are also often targeted to attack and destruction. Due to this, Ramallah has the per capita lowest water supply in the world, whereas just one checkpoint away, Israeli settlers have pools and spas. This is an example of the injustices that Palestinians face due to occupation and theft of their land. Since October 7th, the settler colonial state closed the entrance to the city, causing severe travel restrictions. These take hours to get through, hindering the daily lives of many and halting access to education, medical care, and employment opportunities. These entrances have a watchtower, metal gates, and concrete blocks, all physical evidence of an apartheid regime. Internal checkpoints are in constant control of the IOF, and they conduct random checks, resulting in never-ending fear felt by the people in Ramallah. Harassment and arbitrary arrests are common, with thousands of prisoners in the region being detained without court orders and imprisoned for months. This is a legal arrest, and this is a legal imprisonment. But the violence doesn't stop here. Since October 7th, nearly 1,000 Palestinians have been martyred in this region, over 200 of them being children. And recently, this violence campaign was through the IOF's raid on a shopping area where they set fire to and destroyed buildings and murdered 5 Palestinians. And their violence extends to the land as well. The Israeli military recently gave an order to remove trees in the land surrounding Ramallah for military purposes, continuing a campaign that started long ago, meant to uproot indigenous olive trees and destroy the source of livelihood for indigenous Palestinians. The occupation aims to make these cities in the West Bank, including Ramallah, uninhabitable, forcing Palestinians to leave out of fear and necessity. The proof is everywhere. Military checkpoints, illegal arrests, block access to land and resources, unending violence. To quote Cassis again, occupation is not only the tank and the soldier, it doesn't only restrict your movement, but also your thoughts, plans, aspirations, and your vision. But everywhere there is occupation, there is also resistance by Palestinians living on their own land and spearheading grassroots initiatives in education and water treatment sources. From Gaza to Ramallah, all these walls must be torn down.
Israel is a parasite, an infestation that for over 70 years has tried its hardest to completely take over the land, the spirit, and the life of Palestine. Jenin is a city that's been central to the Palestinian movement ever since the first Nakba. When Israel first began its brutal invasion in 1948, Palestinians from nearby cities all fled their homes to the city of Jenin, where the Jenin refugee camp was formed in the heart of the city. And when those same Palestinians living in Jenin decided to continue the struggle for fighting for their land, on April 3rd, Israel invaded Jenin for what they named Operation Defensive Shield, where Israel not only murdered almost 500, wounded almost 1,500, kidnapped and imprisoned almost 7,000 Palestinians over the course of just 2 weeks, and in typical Israeli fashion, blocked all food, aid, journalists, and human rights monitors from entering the city. Soon after, the infamous Apartheid Wall was built, where Jenin's northern and western borders were completely surrounded by the 57 kilometers of the Apartheid Wall. Israel's policies aimed at dehumanizing, disenfranchising, and eventually eradicating the Palestinian presence in their own country are very clearly reflected in Jenin's treatments. Like many others in the West Bank and Gaza, Jenin's residents are blocked from having any access to quality medical care and education. With 2,829 miles of roadblocks and checkpoints limiting their movements and isolating them from the outside world, they live in constant surveillance. This is oppression, apartheid, and a calculated tactic to weaken and demoralize the Palestinian people. It has nothing to do with security. And nothing more clearly shows the brutal oppression of the wall more clearly than the Iron Wall military raid. In 2024, just last year, Israel launched the largest military occupation in the occupied West Bank, where, in almost a month, Israel murdered over 650 Palestinian citizens, ordinary women, men, and children who had their lives stolen from them by the Israeli occupation. This attack almost personifies all the evils of the apartheid wall. The IDF claims these attacks were for safety, as if using 10-year-old girls as human shields lets anyone feel safe at night. They destroyed hundreds of homes. Entire neighborhoods were left in ruins, destroying the everyday lives of the citizens of Jenin, just as the inhumane wall looms over the city, as Palestinians are reminded that their freedom, their safety, and their livelihood depend not on their own efforts, but on how the IDF and the Israeli occupation decides. And all the injustices faced in Jenin are going on to this very day, where just 1 week ago, an Israeli airstrike murdered 3 Palestinians living in Jenin, directly violating the ceasefire that Israel signed off on. Jenin is more than a city. It's a reminder, an example of not only the genocide and oppression that Israel is committing to the Palestinians in the West Bank, but also how Palestinian resistance is and will always continue.
Jerusalem, the capital of Palestine, the symbol of its nationhood and the resilience of its people, is also the crux of Israel's apartheid system. The wall cuts Jerusalem off from the rest of the West Bank, slicing through Palestinian towns and families, fragmenting and asphyxiating Palestinian existence in and all around it. The apartheid wall makes traveling to the city of Jerusalem, home to sacred sites for all Palestinians, nearly impossible. At the same time, it envelops Jewish settlers into the city, protecting their illegal settlements, in an attempt to erase Jerusalem's demography and the living history of its people. Since 2010, more than 1,500 Palestinian structures in Jerusalem have been demolished, with thousands more families displaced. Entire neighborhoods like Sheikh Jarrah face eviction, demolition, and erasure. Following the occupation and annexation of East Jerusalem in 1967, the region's Palestinians were not granted even the second-class citizenship awarded to Palestinians after the Nakba. Instead, they were granted temporary residency status to their own ancestral homes, which must be reviewed and re-awarded every 3 years. Instead, Jewish settlers are immediately granted full citizenship. Since 2024, in light of the genocide in Gaza, Israel has begun the systematic desecration of Palestine's holy sites. Jewish settlers have begun pouring into Al-Aqsa Mosque in the thousands to engage in demonstrative prayer, blatantly calling for its demolition, protected by Israeli tear gas and gunfire. For Palestinians, the apartheid wall has always been more than a physical barrier. It is a constant reminder of the separation of their villages, the destruction of their homes, their exile from their land. However, while the wall stands a daunting 440 miles wide and 26 feet tall, it is not impenetrable. The resistance fighters of Gaza bulldozed and charged through the wall on October the 7th, a testament of the undying will of the Palestinian people and their true ownership of the entire land of Palestine. As we here in the Empire's core look at this wall behind us, a shadow of the real apartheid wall, it is a reminder that our fight doesn't end at a ceasefire or the recognition of a state of the West Bank. Since the announcement of the ceasefire on October 10th, Israel has violated it 194 times. As the Palestinians continue their fight, we must continue ours against our complicit institutions until the apartheid wall falls, the rubble is cleared, and Palestinians return to their land from the river to the sea with Jerusalem as its capital.
This is the story of Hadiel al-Hashlamoon. On the morning of September 22nd, 2015, Hadiel, an 18-year-old Palestinian, was stopped at the checkpoint in the old city of Hebron. After she passed through the checkpoint metal detectors, Israeli soldiers ordered her to open her purse and lift her veil. Hadiel, who not only spoke Arabic, could not understand the orders given to her in Hebrew, and the Israeli soldiers refused to let witness translate for her. When she couldn't understand their orders to move back, the soldiers shot her, warning shots at the ground, and then shot her in the leg. They shot her 9 more times, 10 times total, as she lay on the ground. After she was shot in the thigh with the first bullet, bullet number 2 went through her left ankle. Bullet number 3 went into her knee. Bullet number 4 hit her waist. Bullet number 5 hit her left arm. Bullet number 6 went through her right hand. Bullet number 7 hit her stomach. Bullets 8 and 9 went through her chest. And bullet 10 hit her beneath her ribs. After being shot 10 times by multiple Israeli soldiers, she lay wounded on the ground. Her body was dragged out of view of cameras and left on the ground at the checkpoint for over half an hour. The Israeli soldiers refused to let Palestinian medics through the checkpoint, and Hadiel went untreated until Israeli medics transported her to a hospital over 30 minutes after she was shot. Hadiel, a first-year university student, like many of us here, died that afternoon. Her father, a prominent doctor in Hebron, reported the medical findings. It showed she died from bleeding and multiple organ failure as a result of multiple gunshot wounds, calling her killed in cold blood. This is the story of Fuad Jabo. Fuad is a father of 5 and a resident of Kharabat Hamas, located just north of Bethlehem. The construction of the apartheid wall separated of Kharabat Hamas from the urban center of Bethlehem, in the center of Bethlehem, in the center of life for residents in the community. Now, residents can only travel to Bethlehem on foot through a checkpoint if they've been issued a permit. Our area is small, with few houses and around 200 residents. We don't have a commercial center, so people have to do their shopping in Bethlehem. If I wanted to shop in Bethlehem, I used to be allowed to bring in quantities that were sufficient in my own use only. But after 2019, it became forbidden to bring in food from the West Bank since it's considered an import. but it depends on the mood of the soldier. Sometimes you are allowed to bring in foods, other times they would just throw it in the trash right in front of your eyes. Every time I had to explain, I have a special permit that allowed me to buy eggs and meat and cross the checkpoint with it. But this is never sufficient for the soldier that needs to get confirmation. If they make the necessary call to their superior and get the approval, then I'm allowed to pass with the food. If they don't make the call, then I'm not allowed to bring the food with me. This takes about an hour and a half. Many times it is in vain. After all that waiting, the soldier just throws away the food. While residents of Karavet Khamis live on the Jerusalem side of the apartheid wall, they are issued identity cards of West Bank Palestinians. Which turn them into a legal residence in their own homes. These identity cards are tools of the apartheid that further limit Palestinian access to service. These identity cards are tools of the apartheid that further limit the Palestinian access to services. This unique legal status means residents of the buried from working in Jerusalem or Israel, and despite being forced to pay the Israeli municipal taxes, they have to receive almost no municipal services or infrastructure development, living under the constant threat of the home demolition due to the lack of building permits. In terms of the health services, in 2005, my mother had a severe heart attack at home. I called Red Cross to send us an ambulance. They said that this required security coordination with the Israeli authorities and that it would take a lot of time. We did not have time. So I called the Israeli ambulance service, Megan David Adum, which supposedly is an independent health organization. They argued that we live in the border area that is a dangerous war zone, and they cannot come out with prior security coordination. In the end, I had to drive my mother in my car in search of an opening in the wall. I finally found a way to smuggle her across, but she died in the car on the way to the hospital.
This is the story of Omar Hajajla and his family who live in the village of Al-Wilaja. When the separation wall was built in their area starting in 2013, it was routed right through the village, directly through the Hajajla family's land. The Hajajla family home was severed from the rest of the village and is currently the only home left on the Jerusalem occupied side of the wall. Omar Hajajla has described this wall as an even worse Nakba than that of 1948, for the disastrous consequences that it brought upon him and his family and the rest of the villagers. He said, "It took what we had left of the land and put us inside a container, a small container, with the wall surrounding us 360 degrees, one entrance. If that checkpoint is closed, no one can enter or leave the village." For years, the state tried to convince the Hajajlas to leave their home by offering them all manner of compensation, including large amounts of money, but they steadfastly refused. Since the Hajajlas would not leave, the state proposed to install a tunnel designed to allow them to access the rest of the village via an underground passageway routed under the wall. The cost of digging and installing the tunnel was about $1.1 million. 2 cameras posted on the gate monitor all the family's movement in and out of their home. Visitors to the Hajajla's home are required to coordinate with the Israeli Military District Coordination Office 48 hours before their planned visit, declaring a purpose for each visit and the number of visitors. Approvals can take anywhere from a few hours to a few days. No more than 10 visitors are allowed at a time, and they must arrive no later than 10 p.m. and leave by midnight. Visits not coordinated in advance can result in the IOF seizing the Hajajla's only remote control access to the outside world and the family losing their right to exit their property. Transporting any construction materials through the passageway is absolutely forbidden, and any construction in the Hajajla's house or land is also prohibited.
This is the story of Amin Khalil Zarur and the young men who went to the sea on the night of Saturday, August 6, 2025 in Yafa. The waves pulled the young men into the deep, and they began to drown. Their families stood on the shore, screaming for help. A police boat arrived, and people thought that it had come to save them. The young men managed to cling to the side of the boat, begging to be rescued. But the officers kicked and pushed them away from the hull. Then suddenly the crew turned on the engine. The spinning blades tore through their bodies in the bloody water. Amin Khalid Zarur, 24 years old, drowned. Bahash Shuwaiki was butchered by the propeller of the police boat. Two of their young relatives were also slashed and injured by the same blades. I went into the sea myself with a rope to save my son, said Ibrahim, father of one of the survivors. Then the police came suddenly. They turned on the engine as if it to throw their lives away. I screamed, "Stop the engine!" But they circled around them. This cannot be a mistake. The most chilling part is that the police left. It abandoned the injured, bleeding, torn, and still alive to die in the sea. Volunteers and surfers rushed to help. One rescuer recalls, "For 15 minutes I paddled with a dying man in my arms. The police refused to help. He died on my surfboard." This is not negligence. This is apartheid. This is the essence of the Israeli police system. Part of the colonial state, Palestinian lives are treated as worthless. And they seize every chance to execute young Palestinians while the killers walk free. 2 young men have been killed. Not a single officer has been questioned.
After 1948, more than 400 Palestinian villages were depopulated or destroyed as the new state of Israel took shape. 418 communities whose people were expelled, their homes seized, their lands remade. Decades later, the separation wall deepened the divide between memory and return. Each stone, each ruin tells a story of life interrupted and belonging denied. Among the villages are Ain Karim, Kafr Sab'a, Madahil, Al-Birwa, Ekrat, Al-Sumariya, Al-Hamadiya. Today, we will claim 18 out of these 418 villages and learn more about their histories in our activity right now. If everyone can make their way to the mats, we're going to be making lanterns to reclaim the 18 villages that I decided.
Everybody wants to make your way over here. We'll be circling around the prayer mat area. You don't need to take your shoes off, but don't come on the prayer mat.
Thank you, it's actually from Palestine. And it's hand.